last presentation of our ancestors. Let's start from the very beginning and find out where our ancestors came from. My ancestors came from Vietnam.
My ancestors came from England.
My ancestors came from Austria.
My ancestors came from Norway.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from Lebanon.
My ancestors came from Mexico.
My ancestors came from India.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from Holland.
My ancestors came from Germany.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from Ukraine.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from Africa.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from India.
My ancestors came from China.
My ancestors came from India.
My ancestors came from Tehran.
My ancestors came from Turkey.
Each second grade student has created a poster that reflects their family heritage, values, and traditions. We hope you enjoy viewing them.
As you can see, our ancestors came from many different countries. Now we understand why America is known as a melting pot of cultures, people, and ideas. Many people came from completely different places but still had something really interesting in common.
Most of our families entered the United States through Ellis Island.
Ellis Island was a place in New York Harbor where immigrants arrived by ship from Europe.
Their papers were inspected, their health was checked, and they had to answer questions about coming to United States.
When they spoke of that first day in America, they were very nervous.
Yet, they were very excited about the challenges awaiting in this new land of opportunities.
Hello, Ellis Island. Hello, USA. Gonna make the smiling, starting from today. Apple of my island, I am here to stay. Hello, Ellis Island. Hello, USA.
Hello, Ellis Island. Hello, USA. You're my place to try when nothing's in my way. Apple of my island, I am here to stay. Hello, Ellis Island. Hello, USA.
Our ancestors came to America dreaming big and wanting to improve the world. They did not travel alone. With them came their stories, traditions, and values. Their convictions enabled them to endure the obstacles and embrace the unknown. The artwork that we have made as a group symbolizes this voyage. It shows our family name and the various countries and virtues that each one of our families has used to navigate through the journey.
The search for freedom and new opportunities are some of the reasons why our ancestors left their homelands to come to America. Now let's hear some of those fascinating stories about our ancestors.
The eldest ancestor found on my mother's side was named Sayyid Ali Sultan. He lived between 1310 and 1402. He moved to Anatolia, Turkey from Khorasan region and was appointed as a mayor of Dimitoka region in Greece by the Ottoman Emperor Sultan Bayezid I. He opened a monastery to help the new settlers in the region and supported the empire forces during the initial growth stages. My family currently lives in the capital city of Turkey, Ankara.
A lot of my family members like to collect things they like. My great-grandfather liked to collect stamps, and he also has a beautiful collection of cricket canisters. My grandma still has real coins which were used 100 years ago. My uncle likes antiques and jade. He will go out to night fairs far away in order to get something nice and unique. My mom told me many people are collecting different things they love, like Transformers and Hello Kitty. I am thinking maybe I can start my own collection from Beyblades.
We come from a long line of fishermen and women. Back then, the boats that went out onto sea were incredibly unsafe. They are hardly boats, more like rafts. Many people die or get lost at sea because of these risks. My great-grandfather wished for a boat that would be safer to use. Because of this, we are now working on funding much larger and safer ships in order to keep our tradition and lineage of fishermen in our home village in China. In just 40 years, the lives of many fishermen have been changed for the better. Rickety rafts turned into sturdy ships.
My ancestors on my mother's side are from Iran. My mother's paternal great-grandfather was a colonel in the Iranian Air Force under the then Shah or King of Iran. He served as a translator and liaison between the Iranian and U.S. Air Forces. My mother's maternal great-grandfather was Deputy Minister of Agriculture and played a key role overseeing the import of meat into Iran from countries like New Zealand and Australia. Both served in leadership roles to build bridges and relationships with the international community. I am proud of my Iranian heritage and the diplomacy with which my ancestors served their country.
During the Second World War, Japan invaded China. My great-grandma helped a Chinese soldier who fought against the Japanese occupation army. One day, when she was cooking, a young man came in and asked whether he could hide in her house because the Japanese soldiers were after him. But it was a tiny house and had no place to hide. She told him to relax and lie down in bed and covered him with a quilt. Then she told her little son, who was my great-uncle and only 4 years old at the time, to help. She continued cooking for several more minutes until the Japanese soldiers broke in. She explained to them that there were only 3 people in the house: herself, her son, and her husband, who was sick and resting in bed. The Japanese soldiers questioned my great-uncle who the man in bed was, and he replied, "He's my dad!" The soldiers left the house to search in other directions. She was so brave and smart. On March 18, 1955, my grandmother and her family boarded the SS Great Bear in Rotterdam, Netherlands, and set sail on an epic adventure to the land of opportunity, America. After 12 rough days at sea, they arrived in New York Harbor and were welcomed by the iconic symbol of freedom, the Statue of Liberty. The New World welcomed them, and their lives were changed forever.
This story is about my great-grandfather. It happened maybe 100 years ago when he was young. When he was a young man and studied in college, his parents sent him a package of books for his exam. He put the package in the back of his bicycle and rode home. The package was dropped on the way. A lady found the package and gave it back to him. That's how my great-grandfather and great-grandmother met. They were married for almost 70 years.
Two of my great-great-grandfathers came to America in the late 1800s from Lebanon to study medicine at the University of Maryland. After graduating, they returned to Lebanon to practice medicine, and it wasn't until 2012 when my father Nicholas also attended dental school at the University of Maryland, Baltimore that we discovered they attended the same university. It was discovered when the school released a notice asking if anyone had records of these two individuals.
I was excited to find out that my great-grandfather was the boss at 4 sugar-making factories in Taiwan many years ago. The factory would squeeze the juice out of sugarcane plants to make the sugar. Sugar was sold in bags for cooking and baking. Simple candies were also sold as a healthy digestive treat for people to enjoy. I wish I could have met my great-grandfather during that time and see how his factories made the sugars and candies.
My grandfather Johann Kyle was born and raised in Oberhag, Austria. I call him Opa. Opa was from a family of shoemakers. His grandparents opened a shoe store out of their home and became the shoe supplier for the whole village. This store remains in this family to this day and is actually the residence of his sister Gabby. As a child, Opa was always ready for an adventure. He loved stories about the Wild West and dreamed of traveling the world. Eventually, he would fulfill this dream, but he had much to do before he would be ready to head west. First, he needed to finish school. He was not a cooperative student, and he was known to try and avoid his school work at all costs. He preferred skiing and fishing and trying to convince his mother that he never had any homework. After he finally finished high school, he had to participate in the in mandatory military service. This was the same year that Russia invaded Czechoslovakia, so more men were being sent to war. Opa was lucky. He was able to complete his service safely at Vienna headquarters of the Austrian Air Force. After Opa completed his time in the military, he finally was able to leave the country for more adventures. He started small by moving to Switzerland before making the bold decision to move to Canada without any family connections or career plans. Opa's first job in Canada was earning minimum wage at McDonald's. He worked his way up through the years and eventually became a successful business owner in the United States. His story is the American dream.
The story began when my dad was just born in 1975. The Vietnam War ended. Then tons of people tried to escape from the government because they were going to take people's money. 4 years later, my dad and grandma snuck out at night and headed to the docks. They paid a captain so that they could leave Vietnam. When they boarded the boat, they saw that it was filled with people trying to escape. Halfway out to sea, pirates took over the ship. They robbed all the passengers and even stole the engine. After the pirates left, the boat drifted out to sea. The next morning, my dad and grandma saw a friendly ship. It was the Coast Guards of Thailand. They rescued everybody on the boat, including my dad and grandma. A couple of months later, my dad celebrated his 5th birthday in a refugee camp. A couple more months passed, and my dad and grandma left for the USA. The reason they came here was because my dad's father was here.
During the last 2 months, we have been asking our parents and grandparents many questions about themselves, their heritage, and family. Some of the things that we wanted to know about were family values and traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Even though we came from many different countries and backgrounds, we still discovered that we share many of the same values. An heirloom is a valuable object that has belonged to a family for many generations. Let's hear these lyrics by Amy Grant about what heirloom really is.
Up in the attic, down on my knees, lifetimes of boxes, timeless to me. Letters and photographs, yellowed with years, some bringing laughter, some bringing tears.
Time never changes the memory, the faces of loved ones who bring to me
all that I come from, and all that I live for, and all that I'm going to be. My precious family is more than an heirloom to me.
Many of us have priceless heirlooms to share with you today.
This statue is from the 1700s. It belonged to a family in France who was part of the Louis XIV's court. After the French Revolution, they had to sell everything
including the statue. My great-great-grand aunt bought it, and it was a centerpiece of her home, and every home it was passed down to after that.
I would like to present my Norwegian family history. It is called Brekke heritage. Brekke is the last name of my mom's ancestors who came to the United States from Norway in 1916. My great-great-great-grandfather, Thorvald, can be seen on this cover here. This book talks about my ancestors who lives in Norway, their journey to the U.S., and provides family trees of many Brekke relatives. My great-great-great-grandfather and my great-great-great-grandmother had 81 great-great-great-grandchildren, so there are a lot of us Brekkes.
Here's a bag that my great-grandma made for my grandma when she was around 88. My great-grandma is very good at sewing and knitting. She chose a pattern that was very fashionable back in her day. This is the most treasured thing within my family because it is full of memories of my great-grandma. When my mom and grandma look at it, their hearts are filled with memories of my great-grandma's love and care.
My family heirloom is a handmade backgammon board. The board was created out of wood and was given to my great-grandfather by one of his employees in Iran around the 1930s or the 1940s. Now my family enjoys playing backgammon on the board.
Today I'll talk to you about an heirloom, which is a pearl necklace with emeralds. My great-grandma bought this and gave it to my grandma, then my mom. When I grow up, my mom will give it to me and then I will give it to my kids. This necklace is 75 years old and we take a lot of care of it.
Our family heirloom is the secret recipe of the beef noodle soup. In China, many families have their own recipe for the beef noodle soup. Different kinds of spices, ingredients, and cooking methods make the dish a unique taste of home. Our family recipe started from my great-grandmother. The dish was so famous that it became an honor to be invited to my great-grandmother's home and enjoy the beef noodle soup. In China, many also brought their home dishes to share the joy and show appreciation. My dad didn't know anything about cooking when he first came to the United States for college. He missed Chinese food so much, and he learned how to cook this recipe over his dad over the phone, who is my grandfather. He replicated the recipe on a rainy weekend after many days of preparation. Now the beef noodle soup has become my dad's specialty dish. He twisted the recipe to adopt local ingredients and shorten the cooking time with modern cookware. This is also my favorite home dish, and I will learn how to cook it for my loved ones.
This bowl was used by my great-great-grandmother to hold candy. Her name was Catherine Reichak. She was born in a country called Ukraine and sailed to the United States over 100 years ago. She might have brought this dish with her on her journey. The candy bowl was in the living room of the Reichak house. She kept it filled with candy for the children, although kids were only allowed to have one piece of candy per day.
After she died in 1951, the bowl was then passed on to various other relatives until it was given to me by my grandfather, Raichak.
This is a bracelet that has been on my mom's side of the family for several generations. My great-grandmother, Justine Jameson Ritter, owned this bracelet and gave something special to each of her 10 kids while she was alive. My grandma Cece was gifted this bracelet and then passed down to my mom once my mom graduated college. It is very special to my mom because it symbolizes their shared love for school and playing the piano. It's special to me because my great-grandmother had 10 kids, 24 grandchildren, and 36 great-grandchildren, with me, Julian Jameson, being one of them. And one day I will get to wear something my great-grandmother owned.
This piece of jade was given to my grandfather by his grandfather. When my grandpa came to the U.S., the jade got a little crack in the shipping process. My grandpa said that the most valuable thing in his house is the family, but this piece of jade reminds him where he came from.
On my 5th birthday, my grandmother Neela, by my mom's mom, gave me a gold pendant that was given to her by her grandmother Kasiba. On my 7th birthday, my grandmother Sri Devi, by my dad's mom, gave me a gold necklace and gold earrings that were given to her by her grandmother Notamba. I love wearing this jewelry on special occasions like family parties and weddings. One day I hope to pass this jewelry along to my children and grandchildren who can continue to wear these special items from our ancestors.
My family heirloom is a necklace my grandmother wore when she got married. She got the necklace from her mom, my great-grandmother. In Indian weddings, women usually wear a big gold necklace during the wedding ceremony. This is a necklace my grandmother wore when she got married, and if I want, I'll get to wear it as well.
This hand mirror belonged to my great-great-grandmother on my father's side. It is made of silver and is around 150 years old. My grandmother's grandmother used to carry it in her purse all the time. When she was young, she gave it to my great-grandmother, who loved it because it reminded her of her mother, and has been passed down from mother to daughter for generations. Belongs to my father's mother now. The design on the silver is from Isfahan, a city famous in Iran for its rich culture, exceptional architecture, and unique turquoise tiles. The mirror used to have a fancy crystal around it, but it broke many years ago. The old mirror was replaced with this one, and it no longer has the fancy crystal. Looking at this mirror makes me think about all my ancestors, and I want to know even more about them. I am who I am because of them.
Although our ancestors came from many different places, we are all proud to be Americans.
Proud to be American are we, proud to live in the land of liberty.
events in history were important and memorable to our parents and grandparents. Many of our grandparents said that the world events that greatly affected their lives were the assassinations of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., the first man on the moon, the Vietnam War, and rock and roll.
Most of our parents said the most important world events in their lives would fall on the Berlin Wall, 9/11, the tsunami, and Hurricane Katrina.
Even though our ancestors lived through some difficult times, we are still lucky to live in this great land of America. Listen to how this land belongs to you and me.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled and followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
Besides finding out what historical events that were important to our ancestors, we were amazed at all the things that were invented in our parents' and grandparents' time. It was hard for us to believe that iPhones, Xboxes, and Game Boys were not part of their childhood.
Our grandparents told us that space travel, color television, microwave oven, and computer were amazing inventions in their lives. Our parents told us that cell phones, digital cameras, laptops, and hybrid cars were the most remarkable inventions of their generation.
It is hard for us to imagine leaving our friends, family, and country to travel to a new foreign land, where language and costumes are totally different. Our ancestors took advantage of the freedom and opportunity offered in this land. They worked hard to create a better life for their children and grandchildren.
And although most of our ancestors are not here today, we send them a big thank you because we are honored to say that America is our home.
Though we hail from different places, have different names and different faces, we're really not as different as we seem.
'Cause we can all stand proud and tall, we're free to be anything at all, and no one's gonna take away our dreams.
America's our home, it belongs to you and me. Let's make this land we love a land of peace and harmony. From its cities, farms, and fields to its mountains high above, America's our home, and it's a country that we love.
You can take the clothes that I wear, take my money and I won't care, 'cause I'll be fine as long as I am free. The time has come to stand up tall, to join together one and all.
and sing it loud in perfect harmony.
America's our home, it belongs to you and me. Let's make this land we love a land of peace and harmony. From its cities, farms, and fields to its mountains high above, America's our home, and it's the country that we love.
From the valleys and mountains in Europe, we came to build the bridges and farm the lands.
From the crowded cities of Orient, we came to build the railroads and make the closing.
From the shores of the Black Sea, we came to man the factories and mine the resources.
We all came to America and followed our dreams. From many people, we became one.
America's our home, it belongs to you and me. Let's make this land we love a land of peace and harmony. From its cities, farms, and fields to its mountains high above, America's our home, and it's the country that we love.
Wow. All I can say, wow. Oh, I want to start by thanking you all. I always become very emotional at this time, but I want to thank you for sharing your beautiful families with us. Every year, it's unique, it's heartwarming, it is the most special time of year, and I don't know if you remember at Back to School Night, I said, trust me, I'm going to ask so much of you, but it will be worth it, and I hope you agree with me. Our families are amazing and wonderful, and so thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mrs. Colley as well. Mrs. Robinson's probably not here, but the artwork that she created with the children, thank you again for sharing your family's virtues, the traits that you hold so dear to your hearts. This will be available for auction at our gala. Mr. Spurgis, thank you, thank you. Your musical genius, once again, has paid off, and second graders, we are so, so proud of you, and I hope you've come to realize how wonderful, amazing, and beautiful your families are. So thank you, thank you. Mrs. McCord, you always come.
Well, that's because Mrs. Hancock will never thank herself, so I want to give a big thank you to Mrs. Hancock and Mrs. Colley. After many, many, many years, this is one of my favorite shows because it's so unique to every single class, and just the stories are heartwarming. And I think the kids learn so much about each other and about themselves too and their families, because otherwise they don't really ask these kind of questions. So I think it's a beautiful show, and I think America needs to learn from all of us. If we could be America, it would be even better than it is today. So thank you all for all your hard work, for being here. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, kids. You really did an outstanding job. So.